find out the top 10 myths that people believe about AI. AI is conscious, AI thinks, AI has like their own willings or things like that. It's not true. What happens in the end is pretty much it works like autocomplete on steroids. It's like it makes really good texting and explain everything in a really understandable human language, but in the end, what happens is AI doesn't have emotions. It doesn't think about like humans. Otherwise, it wouldn't write like text that sounds like a robot. AI will take jobs overnight, so that's not actually true. It's certainly for certain jobs. For example, it can do certain part of copywriting. It can do a lot of like autocorrecting text, things like that. But it's more like an intern for us. It's more like a help. Let's see AI as an ally, as something that is here to support us with the boring tasks, things we don't want to do. For example, formatting text or making something look more beautiful, making slide changes in CSS and styling stuff, but not replacing all the workforce in the world. It's just like the jobs we do are gonna change. We're going to work on something more creative, something that is more human mind like more similar to the way we think and we want to do. And that's pretty much it. It's different from thinking by itself. Well, AI is always right. That's another myth about it. So imagine that you ingest data into AI, so pretty much AI web scrapes the internet, and what it takes, if it's wrong information, for example, if it takes racist information as an input, it's going to process that information and tell you something racist as an output. And that's kind of dangerous for some of situations like this one I mentioned, but it happens for many other different situations. It just depends on the sources that AI is looking for this kind of information. So what happens is pretty much AI can make a lot of mistakes, and me as a software developer and in my group of colleagues at work, we always find out things that AI could do better or could do right, but it doesn't, because the source of information it took information from is wrong. So there is nothing we can do. AI will end humanity tomorrow. So that's not actually true. What happens in the end is that there are some risks related to it, but AI is constantly trained to get better responses, answer better for questions without having to end the world. So we are gonna see something from now on that's happening. So there is a lot of humans trying to glitch AI in some ways. But what will happen is not something at Skynet levels, at least not in any foreseen future for us. AI is the same as humanoids, or AI is the same or as robots, things like that. So what happens nowadays is that AI is pretty much in our phones, making our spreadsheets a little bit easier, writing better text. So it's living in computers, in cell phones, in presentations, things that we are inherently using in our daily lives instead of robots. So there is not something like Terminator movies things going on. It's not like AI lives in a shiny body made of metal. It's more like it's in our devices. It's helping us to achieve our daily tasks. AI can understand everything, so that's not actually true. What happens is that whenever you write a poem for an AI or write a lyrics for an AI, it interprets, it has like that input, it searches on the internet or the data that was ingested into the AI, it searches for similarities between your text and what's out there or what's inside the AI. It does some pattern matching and realizes that the subject behind your text is something related to love, is something related to hate or things. AI is unstoppable. That's actually a really huge myth. What happens in the end is that once the Wi-Fi is weak, AI cannot control anymore, like cannot respond anymore. So what happens is that it's limited to its hardware resources, software resources. Once Anthropic or decides to close cloud for a day or for a decade, we cannot have our control over that. But once OpenAI decides to shut down ChatGPT operations, what happens is that we do not get responses anymore. So what happens in the end is AI is much more stoppable than people used to think about it. So it's not like the Matrix that it just re-feeds itself and just keeps being alive forever and ever. It's more something that if we shut down the plug, the server where AI is hosted, in the end we cannot have our responses back. So that's how it works in the end of the day. AI can creatively think like humans. That's not actually true. What happens is in the end is pretty much it remixes ideas that were originated by humans, but not in the most creative way. It doesn't have like that spark of creativity, something that makes our ideas like so special. So in the end, all we are trying to do is pretty much having the Tim Ferriss book 4 Hour Work Week working for us. What happens is in that book they say, oh, you have to hire someone abroad. Now you just hire AI to do the boring stuff where you can think creatively, have the human thoughts instead of just having to do all that boring work in the end of the day. AI doesn't make mistakes. In the end of the day, what happens a lot is depends on the data it's ingested into AI. So if the data that is ingested, the training data is already mistaken, so it's already broken, it has like false logic inside, and we say to AI, 1 plus 1 is not 2, it's 3 instead. What happens, it was trained with this data, and once you ask for it, it will reply with this wrong data. So in the end of the day, what matters is pretty much the input that was made in beforehand, and once that data is processed, we are gonna have that data back to us. And other than that, there is the context window that when it gets full, for example, more than 60%, it starts hallucinate. So hallucinations are really a common thing, and it's all into AI. That's not actually true. What happens is that it just helps us. So let's think about it as a tool to assist us in our boring daily tasks, but not something that is going to replace us entirely. It's just making our lives easier. So let's think about AI as an ally, as something that is here to help us instead of something that's going to make our lives miserable. That's not actually the purpose of having AI. The real purpose of it is just leaving us with the creative thinking, things that humans love to do, and make our lives easier. So, for example, the easiest robot you have in your house is pretty much like the mop cleaner. You have the dishwasher. So they're kind of robots. They are kind of controlled by AI nowadays, not entirely, but you can see the purpose behind of using robots in the end of the day is to make our lives easier and better. These were the top 10 myths we currently see about AI. I hope they don't change over time and things like that, but send this video to that your friend that always thinks that AI is the next Skynet that is going to overtake the world and makes our lives miserable or things like that. It's not exactly what it's meant to do, so let's keep hope, and I'm pretty sure the future is brighter with AI.